Now, to the events happening directly on the front line. In the Sumy direction, Deep State notes that Russian armed forces have advanced near Unikivka, confirming that, unfortunately, it has not yet been possible to completely stop the Russian offensive on Sumy, although it has slowed down significantly. But there is also good news from this direction. During the recent counterattack near Andrivka in the Sumy region, fighters from the 1st Assault Battalion, Black Swan, of the 225th Separate Assault Regiment, as the unit reports on social media, gave the occupiers quite a hard time. The commander of the 30th Motorized Rifle Regiment of the Russian Federation was eliminated. In the area of Andrivka, an assault group from the 1st Assault Battalion, Black Swan, of the 225th Separate Assault Regiment reached the command post of the battalion of the 30th Motorized Rifle Regiment of the Russian Army. Inside was the battalion commander, Major Andrei Yartsev. During the assault, he was eliminated, reports Black Swan. Pokrovsk direction. Let's move on to it now. According to Deep State, the Russians have advanced in the area of Mern, east of Myrnohrad. This is part of the Russian actions to encircle the Pokrovsk-Myrnohrad agglomeration from the east. In the comments, they specifically mentioned the fighting near Yablonivka, at the junction of the Pokrovsk and Torets directions, where Russian forces are trying to break through to Kostyantynivka. The 36th Separate Marine Brigade is engaged in heavy fighting for Yablonivka. In the footage published by the brigade, you can see Russian infantry being hit there, which is located north of Myrnohrad. In addition to infantry groups, the enemy is also using motorcycles. An interesting detail, the video shows fortifications that have already been lost, but are filled with concrete, Deep State notes. In the same area, on June 17th, there was an extremely rare large-scale mechanized assault for these days, which, as usual, was unsuccessful, according to Ukrainian soldiers. For example, Stanislav Bunyatov writes the following: the Russians had a very successful, in quotes, assault in the Kostyantynivka direction. They used armored vehicles, ATVs, and infantry fighting vehicles. One infantry fighting vehicle simply got stuck in an anti-tank ditch. 2 others started scrambling around the ditch and were destroyed, along with the rest of the equipment. Overall, the guys reacted very quickly and didn't give the enemy a single chance to advance. And here's how Bunyatov's colleague, the author of the Telegram channel Officer, describes the repelling of this attack. About 14 pieces of equipment tried to break through yesterday with a mechanized assault in the Kostyantynivka direction, but not all of them even made it to the line of contact thanks to the excellent work of the infantry, artillery, and UAV units of the Ukrainian Defense Forces. The parade was closed out by Russian ATVs. They were all rushing forward so fast, they probably thought they'd just roll right into Konsta, but... He ends, leaving the rest unsaid. Soon, footage of the assault appeared, which was geolocated by the Ascent channel Infectum. The Zhiguin Mangusta channel will publish footage of the successful repelling of yesterday's mechanized attack in the Kostyantynivka direction, showing the exit from Novolinivka. At least 24 pieces of heavy armored vehicles were involved in the attack, most of which were destroyed, according to Infectum's assessment. Serhiy Sternenko also talks about the repelling of this same assault. Yesterday, that is, June 17th, in the Kostyantynivka direction, the Russians suddenly advanced in a column for a mechanized assault. And they got burned. One of the IFVs even fell into a ditch. The Phoenix Border Detachment took part in repelling the assault and, with the help of your drones, destroyed several pieces of equipment, 3 IFVs, 2 tanks, and an APC, writes Sternenko. Isolated mechanized assaults will periodically occur in all directions, comments Stanislav Bunyatov. The enemy regularly advances in places where they have already succeeded once and where they do not encounter resistance critical to their forces. Currently, frontal assaults with heavy losses are taking place mainly in those areas where the Russians are either trying to gain a tactical advantage for further offensive operations or to reach a specific line in order to conduct a demoralizing propaganda campaign. The enemy clearly understands where and why they are sacrificing so many troops, since their methods are justified by the goals they achieve. We'll discuss separately in the near future to what extent Russian losses are justified by the goals they've achieved. But for now, let's move on. The Torets direction. Let's talk a little about it. In the Torets direction, Deep State has reported Russian forces advancing north of Zarya. Here, the Russians also intend to reach Kostyantynivka, gradually moving closer to Yablonovka from the south. Despite repelling major assaults, it has not yet been possible to completely stop the Russian advance in this area either. The southern Donetsk direction. What's happening there? There, the Russians continue to advance toward the Dnipropetrovsk region, particularly in the area of Komar, according to the author of the Telegram channel Officer. The situation in the Komar area is, to put it mildly, not great, he reports. The enemy is making gains both in the settlement itself and in neighboring areas. While all attention was focused on the Sumy region, we now have another zone where the enemy is actively building on their success, the officer concludes. At the same time, not all of the Russian armed forces' successes in this direction correspond to reality, even though supposedly confirmed by objective control footage. Within the Z community, discussions continue about the practice of flag planting, especially after, a week following the release of footage showing a flag in Alexivka, it turned out that Ukrainian forces are still present in the village in, quote, substantial numbers. Planting a flag is one thing, clearing out a settlement and actually securing it is another, writes the Z channel, I'm bluish, and Donbass is on the front line. The problem lies in the lack of oversight over those reporting, the impunity of those taking credit, and the fact that high-ranking officers rarely, if ever, visit the actual front line. And from Rostov, you can't tell where a settlement has actually been cleared and where a flag was just planted as proof. Postscript. Back in the days of Besler and Khodakovsky, there was no flag planting. Postscript. The philologist is really risking ending up in the non-smoking car after these publications. This refers to the Z author Svyatoslav Golikov, who was actually the one to bring up the issue of flag planting in Alexivka. And it seems that he raised this question in the public sphere not for hype or out of animosity. Apparently, these isolated incidents have started to look like everyday occurrences. In other words, the real problem, when you boil it down, is the irretrievable losses. People who, if used wisely, could have stayed alive, kept working for victory, and continued to serve their motherland, as stated in the Z channel. The intensity of Russian offensive actions is not letting up. According to the infographics from the Oka Gora resource, based on the summary from the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, the number of Russian assault actions for the week from June 9th to 15th increased by 16% compared to the previous week, reaching 193 attacks per day. That's a very high number. Interestingly, this happened mainly due to increased activity on secondary offensive directions, South Donetsk, Toretsk, and Sumy, where the number of assaults grew by 28 to 43%, while on the main Pokrovsk direction, the number of attacks actually decreased slightly by 9%. Although, it still accounts for more than a quarter of all assault actions. Disturbing videos are being posted on Z channels. Now, Russian drones are able to reach the northern outskirts of Kharkiv, even without fiber optics. This didn't happen because of an advance toward the city. The front line in the northern part of the region is practically static, but because of the development of drone technology, which is also making progress in the Russian army. Of course, Ukrainian drone operators have their own achievements as well. The 413th Battalion of the Raid Unmanned Systems Forces reported the destruction of a Russian radar station. And why is everyone silent about the fact that we struck the Yastreb AV radar? That's right, because it hasn't been shown yet. But now the time has come. Here's the footage for you. Not infographics, not memes. These are the real results of our work. $250 million isn't just the cost of the equipment, it's the price of blinding the enemy and our joy. The Raid Battalion doesn't work for glory, but for results. But since this topic has come up, tell everyone, because the strike on the Yastreb isn't just impressive, it's strategically important. We're showing it, so you spread the word, the unit's channel urges. Here it is. A new thrilling episode of Toad Viper NG. In Moscow, Telegram channel Soldiers Truth author and war correspondent Mikhail Polinkov was detained on the morning of June 18th by military police. According to his lawyer, Mikhail was taken to the Military Investigative Department of the Investigative Committee on Spartakovsky Street. The reason for his detention is still unclear. Mikhail Polinkov is the deputy chairman of the Russian movement of Strelkov and a member of the Central Election Commission of the political party CPRS Russian Spring. Polinkov himself suggested that he was detained because of a video with Vladimir Solovyov, where Solovyov recalls his promise to go defend Israel. The video was published on Polinkov's channel, and in the very next post, the Z military correspondent reported his own detention.
I have never hidden this. Back in 2004, when there was also a lot of tension, I gave an interview to some youth Jewish newspaper. I said that if a war broke out in Israel, then as a Jew, I would go there to defend my people.
Right now, he's being dragged through the mud in Russian media, in trashy outlets and by REN TV in particular, supposedly for organizing a fraudulent scheme. They're talking about his project to search for missing persons. At the same time, other sources are saying it's actually because he's a 500. I've personally known for a long time that he's a 500th, and about a year and a half ago, the military police already tried to detain him. But somehow, they managed to work something out. So, apparently, he was allowed to keep working, but it looks like his get-out-of-jail-free card has expired. Judging by the fact that there still haven't been any official statements, including from the investigative committee, this might just be his final warning. Or maybe nothing will save him now, and he'll just end up in the cell next to Strelkov. We'll see how it all plays out. But for sure, we'll be watching how the Z channels react to what's happening. No doubt, preparations are already underway. The pot's on the stove, the water's boiling, and the dumplings have been thrown in. So, of course, we'll be watching the Z channel's reaction when one of their own gets taken in yet again. Footage of torture of Russian servicemen keeps surfacing regularly. This time, the video shows a man being chained up in a booth while people throw food at him. During the abuse, they threaten to send him on an assault mission. This is how they really treat those whom the authorities call heroes, comments the channel Mobilization. Draft T news about this video. Once again, we're talking about torture that Russians inflict on other Russians. It's no surprise that in the Russian army, being threatened with being sent on an assault is so frightening, because most of the time it's a one-way ticket, especially due to the state of Russian tactical medicine and evacuation. Footage on this topic from Russian social media is being published by the Parapak channel, accompanied by the following comment. In the Russian army, in the 4th year of the war, the level of tactical medic training has dropped to that of World War I. Some bums with a cart are putting on tourniquets, and they'll run away as soon as the shelling starts. This kind of training usually takes just 2 or 3 days. Here's yet another story showing that not only are the veterans of the special military operation themselves unwanted, but so are their families. In the Rostov region, the widow and ex-wife of a fallen soldier are being forced to return previously received payments. The ex-wife of a participant in the special military operation said that 2 years after his death, the Ministry of Defense is demanding that she and the widow pay back the insurance payments that were given to their children. The serviceman died in 2023. He left behind 4 children from different marriages. Each child received payments. Now the women have been told that there was an overpayment. The first woman was overpaid by 700,000 rubles and the second by 1.4 million rubles. Both have been ordered to return these amounts. The reason is an unaccounted for child. The woman states all information was submitted to the Ministry of Defense and Enlistment Office on time.
Everything was submitted to the Ministry of Defense and the Military Enlistment Office multiple times, everywhere, and always on time. That's it. Basically. In reality, they're just forcing us into debt.
Both women spent the money they received on housing. All actions were carried out with the involvement of Child Protective Services. The woman also said that the widow lost her job. She was fired after the company found out that her husband had died in a special military operation. According to her, the company is owned by developers who have a negative attitude toward the military actions. On the same day, another employee was also fired, a widow who had also lost her husband at the front. The women sought legal assistance from the Defenders of the Fatherland Foundation, but so far have not received any results. One of them is a single mother, and the other is raising 3 children. The woman clarified that her salary is 26,000 rubles, and she has no way to return the money.
I am asking for help. I am asking for justice, because this is help for the children, for those involved in the special military operation. Yes, everywhere regarding the special military operation, they write, we will pay you, we will help you. But in reality, it turns out to be the opposite.
So if you think that by going to the front, you'll at least be able to provide for your family, that's not the case. The government doesn't care about you, your children, your wives, current or former. Russia doesn't care at all about the lives of its citizens. In the Leningrad region, they decided to dismantle a monument to a participant of the Great Patriotic War in order to put up a memorial dedicated to the war in Ukraine. In the rural settlement of Osluga in the Leningrad region, local authorities plan to replace a memorial plaque dedicated to a submarine captain who died during the Great Patriotic War with a monument to participants of the war in Ukraine. This was mentioned in the tender for the memorial's renovation, as noted by Verska. The project documents state that they plan to dismantle the monument to Captain First Rank Ismail Zagelin and move it to a new location. Exactly where and when they plan to move it is not specified. The memorial plaque honoring Zagelin is installed at the mass grave in the Karakoli quarter, next to the large monument to the participants of the Great Patriotic War at the mass grave. Instead of this plaque, the authorities intend to install 6 others with the names of those who died in the war with Ukraine, as well as a memorial arch with a bell and cranes nearby. The authorities estimate the project will cost almost 13 million rubles. The monument to Ismail Zagelin was installed in 2019. At the beginning of the Great Patriotic War, the captain commanded the submarine SHCH for 23 of the Ocean Fleet, and during the years of the Great Patriotic War, he fought on patrol boats.